friends, welcome to a new episode of Dristhi IAS Editorial Analysis. In this editorial analysis, we do three things. First of all, we link the editorial to the UPSC syllabus. Secondly, we try to understand the key points of the editorial. And thirdly, if any key concepts have come in the editorial and are important from exam point of view, we also discuss them. So let us begin today's editorial analysis. We have taken today's editorial from the Hindustan Times, and the title of the editorial is Step Back from Parochialism. And it says that reservations for locals will not solve the employment crisis. So let us look at its linkage with the syllabus. So we find that it links directly with GS paper 2, and under this it links with government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. Also it links with the issues relating to development and management of human resources. So after establishing the linkage with the syllabus, let us look at the key points of the editorial. So before moving on to the key points of the editorial, let us understand what the issue is all about. So on 18th of August, the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh said that all the government jobs of the state would be reserved for the children of Madhya Pradesh. And Madhya Pradesh is not the only state which has gone on this path of reserving jobs for locals. Other states have also done so. Sometimes back, the government of Haryana reserved 75% jobs for locals in private sector. Also, the government of Telangana has recently reserved 60% skilled jobs and 80% of the unskilled jobs in new industries that will be set up in the state. And many other states have also toyed with this idea of reserving jobs for locals. And it has gained much currency in different states of India, though it goes against some of the major constitutional provisions and which form part of fundamental rights or part 3 of the constitution. So here we can see that the Constitution of India guarantees freedom of movement and consequently employment within India through several provisions. And the prominent among these are Article 19, which ensures that citizens can move freely throughout the territory of India. Article 16, which guarantees that no birthplace based discrimination can happen in public employment, that is in government jobs. Article 15 guards against discrimination based on place of birth, and Article 14 provides for equality before law irrespective of the place of birth. So all these constitutional articles are important in this debate when the state governments are going overboard in reserving jobs for locals, as this is an easy way to gain political mileage over other parties. And this has also become a case of competitive populism between the different states, and which is not good for the unity and integrity of India. Now the state level protectionism or this policy of reserving jobs for locals is problematic, as it goes against the citizens' fundamental right to move and work freely within India and the idea of the country as one market. Also, there is considerable value in keeping labor market free from restrictions, as it introduces new skills, spurs innovation, and enriches the cultural fabric of the place. So after this brief background, let us look at the key points of the editorial. So the editorial says that reservations for locals will not solve the employment crisis because this needs structural reforms, and this needs the governments to focus on skill training, vocational education, and such other long-term measures. But the governments want immediate benefit, immediate electoral returns, and that is why they are more keen on a policy of reserving jobs for locals, which can get them instant popularity and votes. So the editorial says that Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan has announced that all government jobs in the state would be reserved only for the children of Madhya Pradesh, and relevant laws would be framed for this purpose. And this is not restricted to just one political party. His predecessor, Mr. Kamal Nath of Congress, had promised that 70% of the jobs in industrial units would be reserved for locals. So this tendency of reserving jobs for locals, it cuts across political parties and also across states, as it is not just Madhya Pradesh, but from Haryana to Gujarat and from Maharashtra to Karnataka, across Indian states, there is either a policy framework which reserves educational seats or jobs for locals, or there is a strong political push in that direction. In fact, the editorial says that this cry, jobs for locals, has become a widespread refrain, and it is also understandable because One, there is a severe crisis of unemployment, and both public as well as private sector jobs have either shrunk or not grown at the pace with which the population of the states have grown. So there is a lack of jobs to meet the demands of India's growing workforce. Secondly, instead of addressing the structural economic issues which can generate employment, political parties across the spectrum take the easy way out by framing the issue as one between insiders and outsiders. And this we can see worldwide, as even President Trump has been following this America First policy, where he has been trying to restrict the outsiders from coming to America and taking up jobs of the Americans. Thirdly, a nativist sentiment, that is, a local sentiment, is built up, and the citizens are told that they would have had jobs but for the fact that those from outside the state have cornered the benefits. And this is the main plank of people pushing this jobs for locals agenda, that the outsiders are taking up your benefits, your jobs, your resources, and everything can be yours if only the outsiders are denied entry. Though in reality, the things are different, and the outsiders actually contribute to the economy of the place, which is true in the case of America and which is also true in the case of Indian states, which have benefited from the interstate migration of workers. And when this sentiment of locals gains hold over the people, then a simple solution is offered, and that is reserving the jobs for locals. The voters also see this as a panacea and fall for the promise that will do little to address the real and complex issues of joblessness, because the real issue is the creation of more jobs and also the skill building of the local population so that they can take up those jobs on merit and without any need for reserving the jobs for locals. Finally, the editorial also talks about this reserving jobs for locals also going against the constitutional principles. And this kind of competitive populism across states is also dangerous for the unity and integrity of the nation. The constitutional tenets such as equality of opportunity and non-discrimination are being flouted by this reserving jobs for locals. Another key constitutional tenet is the freedom to move across the country and the freedom to reside and settle anywhere and practice any profession, which is guaranteed under Article 19 of the Constitution. But this is also being hampered by various states taking up measures to restrict employment on the basis of domicile. And here we should also know the meaning of this term domicile. So domicile means that you are a lawful permanent resident of a particular jurisdiction. So this also we should be clear about. Further, the editorial says that an important principle that the Constitution strives to inculcate among citizens is fraternity, and development of this fraternity among citizens is possible only when there is engagement between citizens from different parts of the country, which such policies such as reserving jobs for locals will only discourage. And the editorial also says that yes, there is a real jobs crisis and that needs to be addressed, but this is not the way to go about it, by reserving the jobs for the locals. Because if the states will turn insular or inward looking, it will not solve the crisis. Instead, it will create other challenges, and especially for national integration. Finally, the editorial suggests that all the political parties across the spectrum should evolve a consensus, and the states should also refrain from this form of dangerous populism. In fact, the focus should be more on skill building and providing vocational education to the local citizens so that they can take up jobs which are available anywhere across the country. So this was all in the key points of the editorial. Now let us look at some key concepts. So in key concepts, let us look at why states are reserving jobs for locals. So first of all, it is the son of the soil theory. The economic sluggishness or the economic slowdown and the lack of enough jobs in the market is the primary reason for politics, which is driven by sons of the soil theory, which is reserving the jobs for the local residents. Also, there is vote bank politics at play because such promises, especially during elections, draw voters' attention, and the elected governments are later on forced to act on this promise. Also, it is a shortcut to winning elections. There is also this aspect of land acquisition for industries, which sometimes have some preconditions attached from those who are losing their lands, like the farmers and the villagers, to provide jobs to their family members or local youth. But this is more understandable. The problem comes when it is implemented as a policy. Now let us look at some of the cons of this jobs for locals policy. So first of all, it violates the constitutional provisions, especially violates Article 16, which specifically states that no citizen shall on grounds only of religion, race, caste, sex, descent, place of birth, residence, or any of them be ineligible or discriminated against in respect of any employment or office under the state. So this Article 16 specifically prohibits any kind of discrimination in public employment. Though under Article 16 Clause 3, an exception has been provided which allows the Parliament for making provisions in government appointments where residence can be added as a condition, but this can only be done by Parliament. Another problem with this sons of soil or jobs for locals is that it adversely impacts unity in diversity, and this policy can lead to a situation of locals versus outsiders in an area and posing a threat to the integration of the country. Also, this may lead to localized protectionism, which was earlier seen in the case of India when the country was ruled by over 500 princes and each of them used to take care of his or her own people only. This also goes against the spirit of competition, as a local person who is not fully skilled may get the job or preference in job over the non-local who is more skilled, which will ultimately adversely impact the competitiveness of the industry or the competence of the government. Finally, let us look at this landmark 2014 case, which can also be cited in your answer. And this is Charu Khurana versus Union of India case of 2014. And here a trade union had declined membership to a makeup artist because she had not lived in Maharashtra for at least 5 years as per the union's rules. And in this case, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the artist by referring to the following articles. Article 16, which guarantees no birthplace-based discrimination in public employment. Article 15, which guards against discrimination based on place of birth. And Article 14, which provides for equality before law, irrespective of place of birth. So this is one of the important cases that can be cited in an answer on this issue of reserving jobs for locals. So this was all in the editorial analysis. Now let us look at the kind of questions that can be asked in prelims and mains. So in prelims, the questions can be directly asked on the constitutional provisions which are in news. So one should be clear about Articles 14, 15, 16, 19 and also the subclauses of Article 16, especially Article 16 subclause 3, which provides an exception to Article 16. Also, one should be clear about the sons of the soil theory and how it is used to defend the reservation for locals. Then a question can also be asked on this important case of Charu Khurana versus Union of India 2014 and what did the Supreme Court say in this particular case. In mains, the question can be on the implications of the growing trend of reservation of jobs for locals in various states and how it can undermine the unity and integrity of India and what steps should be taken by the government to arrest this trend. So on these kind of questions, we should be prepared. So this was all in today's editorial analysis. We'll see you next time with another editorial. Thank you.